Coming up next on this edition of the news, scientists at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California say they're close to developing a robot that can act like a human. Find out where this mechanical being is being built to work in many places any human can, but no human would want to.
And get ready for a tour of a place very few people get to see. We're taking you inside one of the most secure places in America. You're watching the best source for news and information. The news starts now. Hello everyone, I'm Alex.
And I'm Michelle. Here's what's happening. Researchers at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory announced recently that they're developing a robot that can move like a human. RoboSimian is a four-legged disaster response robot designed to fix problems in environments that are deemed too dangerous for humans. It moves around by using cameras and other sensors to build a 3D map of its surroundings. It then sends that information back to the robot's operator, who then decides where RoboSimian should go. Specially designed grippers and limb joints make it possible to fit into spaces and manipulate objects just like a human being. But unlike humans, RoboSimian is super strong.
In every one of these joints, we have exactly the same drivetrain. This contains the electronics that run it, the brake, the motor itself, and the drivetrain, which is a harmonic gearing in this case. Out of this one little thing, we can actually get as much torque as an F-150 truck.
Researchers are subjecting RoboSimian to a series of tests designed to push the limits of its capabilities. If they succeed, RoboSimian will be able to replace humans in dangerous, life-threatening environments.
The U.S. Postal Service is celebrating the invention of pickup trucks with a new commemorative stamp series. The plate of 4 stamps highlights 4 iconic pickup trucks models: the 1938 International Harvest D2, the 1948 Ford F1, the 1953 Chevrolet, and the 1965 Ford F100. According to postal officials, the honor was given because pickup trucks embody America's strong work ethic.
U.S. postage stamps honor both people and events that have helped shape our history, as well as the many places and things we treasure, because they represent our values and what we stand for as a nation. Today, we honor 4 classic pickups, revered symbols of American agility, innovation, perseverance, and resilience.
In 1925, the Ford Model T runabout with pickup body featured a steel bed and a 20 horsepower engine. It cost brand new $281. The political climate around the world needs to be monitored closely in order to keep the country safe. When a political crisis occurs, wherever it may be, there's only one place that officials from the United States gather to come up with a plan to handle it. Jeff Harley takes us on an exclusive tour of the White House Situation Room.
Good evening, Mr. Prime Minister. It'll be one moment for President Obama. Introducing the Prime Minister.
We're here in the West Wing of the White House, inside the White House Situation Room. We host about 25 conferences a day here in the Situation Room, and some 250 guests attending the different meetings throughout the day. In a month, that's over 5,000 visitors and attendees to the different meetings that we have here. It's a state-of-the-art facility, the ability to conduct video teleconferences with 17 or 1,800 entities throughout the world.
This is an interagency meeting on H1N1 pandemic, and so it has interagency representatives from the executive branch, departments and agencies. They have the technology here and the capability to bring in other departments and agencies electronically as opposed to having folks face-to-face.
The White House Situation Room was created in May of 1961 by the then National Security Advisor, McGeorge Bundy. They had a voracious appetite for information, particularly President Kennedy. And in response to that need, they felt the desire to create a communications center here within the White House. In 2007, the White House Situation Room underwent a major renovation which greatly expanded the square footage and the capabilities of the White House Situation Room. We went from one principal conference room to 3 principal conference rooms. This is the large conference room where the President holds the National Security Council meetings. This is the President's chair. He controls the video options, including the microphones. And the traditional lineup of seats is based on the seniority of the different cabinet members attending the meeting. Tied to the executive conference room is a small breakout room designed to enable the President to take 1 or 2 people into a conference room to have a small one-on-one session with them. And all of the feel that you see here, the types of wood, are designed to replicate the other entities at which the President would participate. Places like Air Force One and Camp David, so that wherever the President is, the feel is the same, having the same texture and sound around him. One of the cool features of this particular room in the White House Situation Room is the opportunity to provide privacy for the President if he's making a head of state phone call from the Situation Room itself. And what we'll do is we'll be able to fog the windows to give him that level of privacy. So throughout the White House Situation Room, you have a number of phone tubes, or we call them Superman tubes, with the capability to have unclassified telephones as well as top secret telephone capability. This is the watch floor of the White House Situation Room, and the watch floor's commodity is situational awareness. We're a fusion center, meaning that we fuse approximately 2,000 pieces of information every day. We produce 3 daily reports directly for the President, and it's basically a situational awareness update, perhaps since the last time the President had an opportunity to assimilate any additional information. The room that you see behind me is called the surge room, and that's where we literally surge personnel in a crisis. We keep the phones and the computers always on so that we can provide instant access and start fusing information to provide a summary for the decision makers in the White House so that they can make the decisions in response to that situation or crisis, and hence the clever name Situation Room. 1/3 of the personnel come from the intelligence community, 1/3 come from the Department of Homeland Security, and the remainder come from the U.S. military. We are sent here because we're apolitical. We're not Democrats, we're not Republicans. We're here to support our nation and the President of the United States and the institution of the presidency. And all of the people who work in the White House Situation Room are simply the best and the brightest that this nation can offer, and they do the very best job that they can do.
A door inside the Situation Room gives access to a staircase that leads up to the White House swimming pool. A feature requested by President Gerald Ford to allow the first family to enter the pool area without crossing the South Lawn.
Scientists at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration want to know how the oceans affect the Earth's climates. That's why they've deployed a fleet of underwater floats, called Argo. At more than 3,000 locations around the world, the floats are designed to spend multiple days underwater, observing and storing information about depth, salinity levels, and temperature. When they return to the surface, they transmit the data that they've collected back to the scientists via satellite. In the future, it's hoped that Argo will be able to tell researchers how much and how quickly the ocean is changing.
A chance discovery in the desert is changing the future of at least one historical artifact. Dock is B-29 Superfortress, one of the more than 1,600 built during World War II. In 1987, she was discovered rotting in the Mojave Desert. Dock hadn't flown in the last 6 decades, but that all changed recently. Thanks to the relentless effort of volunteers, it took 16 years, hundreds of volunteers, and close to 100,000 hours of work to bring Dock back to her former glory. But if you ask anyone on the restoration team if they had any regrets, they'll tell you it was all worth the wait.
It's kind of hard to even say. You know, I've been living on a high for the last week or two, or the last so many days and weeks. I'm sure that once its first flight has been completed, I'll be able to get a good night's rest somehow.
Dot climbed back into the sky over McCollin Air Force Base, soaring over the very factories where she was made.
Of course, the desert isn't the only place you can find abandoned historical artifacts, but it's not likely that this one will be restored anytime soon. Scientists at NASA and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory are celebrating the 50-year anniversary of the Surveyor 1 moon probe. Launched in 1966, Surveyor 1 was the first ever unmanned spaceship to make a controlled touchdown on the lunar surface. The tiny craft transmitted data back to scientists on Earth for more than 6 weeks before its batteries died. During that time, it took more than 11,000 images of the lunar surface.
The vehicle was supposed to enter a fixed rate of descent. So that happens. At a certain distance above the surface, the engines are all supposed to shut off. And then it's supposed to drop to the surface. And the engines all shut off. And you could hear a pin drop. It worked. We're down. It's still transmitting.
6 more Surveyor space probes will be sent to the moon. 4 of those, like Surveyor 1, survived landing.
There's more news just ahead. Here's just a brief sampling of some of the stories we'll be bringing you right after the break. Find out how the world's best climbers may become the inspiration for robot mechanics that will someday maintain and repair the International Space Station.
And a little later, the U.S. Postal Service honors a television series that's lived long and prospered for over 50 years. We'll be right back.
Why are interscholastic sports called the last classroom of the day? Because they teach students important life lessons like teamwork, accountability, and perseverance. School sports are so much more than a game. They're about developing the whole person. That's why they're an essential part of every student's education.
Encourage your student to participate in the last classroom of the day. Interscholastic sports in Indiana. This message presented by the IHSAA.
Researchers at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory are known for thinking outside the box, but now they're learning how to climb out of the box as well. JPL announced recently that it's following the example of nature's most amazing climber, the gecko, to create a new kind of adhesive. They've invented a material that mimics the hairs in a gecko's feet. They call it the gecko's gripper. The goal is to equip robots with gecko grippers so that they can crawl around on the outside of the space station or other spacecrafts to do repairs. New technology is behind the counting success of NASA's Dawn mission. It might sound like something out of the Star Trek, but Dawn's revolutionary ion engine technology is real, and it's helping scientists to understand our solar system in ways they never did before. The Dawn space probe orbited the giant protoplanet Vesta located in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Then, with the help of its ion engine, Dawn left Vesta and is now in orbit and exploring a second new world, the dwarf planet Ceres, also created in the asteroid belt. It's the first any spacecraft, and it was only possible thanks to the ion engine on board Dawn. There's more news just ahead. When we return from this break, we'll take you about a new stamp just coming out that's flying into stamp collectors' hands at a warp speed.
We can imagine the technology, we can imagine this world created. Now let's go further in the way that Star Trek has taught us and imagine a better world that's more inclusive and more accepting and more based on curiosity.
We're boldly going where no U.S. postage stamp has gone before. We'll be right back.
Remember, we're a team that plays together. Listen, the winning will take care of itself. We just have to get everyone involved.
In interscholastic sports, we celebrate what makes every one of us unique. And in the pursuit of a common goal, everyone in the huddle, in the bleachers, and in the community comes together. This message presented by the IHSAA and the Indiana Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Finally, the story. Nearly 50 years to the day of original airing of Star Trek, the U.S. Postal Service dedicated the Star Trek Forever stamps at New York City's Jacob K. Javits Convention Center. Star Trek celebrated its 50th anniversary recently. The television series broke new ground in storytelling, providing a positive, optimistic look at topics, including race relations, global peace, the environment, and more. According to Postmaster General Megan J. Brennan, Star Trek's multicultural cast and storylines touched on social issues and pushed past the boundaries of popular science fiction, becoming a worldwide phenomenon.
And when you think about all of the science, the culture, the technology that I was born into because of Star Trek, not only were there all this diverse crew working together, there were things like smartphones and communicators and warp drives. At NASA, we are actually looking into how you might someday build a warp drive. And was that partially due to the inspiration that Star Trek gave us? We're actually working on how you would build a transporter. For those of you that know something about quantum teleportation, we're working on how that might actually work.
Actor Walter Koenig, who played Navigator Pavel Chekhov in the series, helped unveil the new stamp.
And that's it for this edition of the news. From all of us here, we thank you for watching and hope that you'll tune in next time.